Hare Krishna. So today we're doing a little special thing on creation from the Vedic point of view or the Vedantic point of view. So this will be in two parts. First part being today, second part being on Sunday. And verse for today, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 1. So it's a little bit of a tricky verse, so I'm just going to read it and then also do the translation. And I'm going to do part of the purport, which is something I'm not fond of regularly, but it's a very long purport, so we might not get any further if I do the whole purport. So if I ask nicely, would you do me a favor and later today just read the text and the full purport, because it's quite beautiful and it does pretty much explain the full situation as it is. So very nice. So please do that. I will do that myself also. Janmajjashayatun vadyat itaras jate svapitya svarat tene brahmahritayat adikavyaye muhyanti yat surayaha tejo varimrtam yata vinimayo yatra trisargumrsa dhamna svena sada nirastak kuhakam satyam param dhimahi. Sanskrit scholar would probably cringe his feet now, but what to do? Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes temporarily manifest. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Purport. Obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, directly indicate Lord Sri Krishna, who is the divine son of Vasudeva and Devaki. This fact will be more explicitly explained in the text of this work. Sri Vyasadeva asserts herein that Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and all those are his direct or indirect plenary portions or portions of the portions. Srila Jiva Goswami has even more explicitly explained the subject matter in his Krishna Sandarbha. And Brahma, the original living being, has explained the subject of Sri Krishna substantially in his treatise named Brahma Samhita. In the Samaveda Upanishad, it is also stated that Lord Sri Krishna is the divine son of Devaki. Therefore, in this prayer, the first proposition holds that Lord Sri Krishna is the primeval Lord, and if any transcendental nomenclature is to be understood as belonging to the absolute personality of Godhead, it must be the name indicated by the word Krishna, which means the all-attractive. In Bhagavad Gita, in many places, the Lord asserts himself to be the original personality of Godhead, and this is confirmed by Arjuna and also by great sages like Narada, Vyasa, and many others. In the Padma Purana, it is also stated that out of the innumerable names of the Lord, the name of Krishna is the principal one. Vasudeva indicates the plenary portion of the personality of Godhead, and all the different forms of the Lord, being identical with Vasudeva, are indicated in this text. The name Vasudeva particularly indicates the divine son of Vasudeva and Devaki, Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna is always meditated upon by the Paramahamsas, who are the perfected ones among those in the renounced order of life. Vasudeva, or Lord Sri Krishna, is the cause of all causes. Everything that exists emanates from the Lord. How this is so is explained in later chapters of this work. This work is described by Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya as the spotless Purana because it contains the transcendental narration of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. The history of the Srimad Bhagavatam is also very glorious. It was compiled by Sri Vyasadeva after he had attained maturity in transcendental knowledge. He wrote this under the instruction of Sri Naradaji, his spiritual master. Vyasadeva compiled all Vedic literatures containing the 4 divisions of the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutras or the Brahma Sutras, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, and so on. But nevertheless, he was not satisfied. His dissatisfaction was observed by his spiritual master, and thus Narada advised him to write on the transcendental activities of Lord Sri Krishna. These transcendental activities are described specifically in the 10th canto of this work. But in order to reach to the very substance, one must proceed gradually by developing knowledge of the categories. It is natural that a philosophical mind wants to know about the origin of the creation. At night he sees the stars in the sky, and he naturally speculates about their inhabitants. Such inquiries are natural for man because man has developed consciousness which is higher than that of the animals. The author of Srimad Bhagavatam gives a direct answer to such inquiries. He says that the Lord Sri Krishna is the original of all creations. He is not only the creator of the universes, but the destroyer as well. The manifested cosmic nature is created at a certain period by the will of the Lord. It is maintained for some time, and then it is annihilated by his will. Therefore, the supreme will is behind all cosmic activities. Of course, there are atheists of various categories who do not believe in a creator, but that is due to a poor fund of knowledge. The modern scientist, for example, has created space satellites, and by some arrangement or other, those satellites are thrown into outer space to fly for some time at the control of the scientist who is far away. Similarly, all the universes with innumerable stars and planets are controlled by the intelligence of the personality of Godhead. So I'll stop here and then we can all read on our own time later. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tashmai Shri Kurave Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I brought some notes today because it's a special topic, so sometimes I kind of go off on a tangent, and that's fine because everything is Vedanta, so you can always connect it and you can just make your way back. But today is kind of a special topic, so I think I'll try and see if I can stay on topic just today. So I promise to record this for someone. Okay, so the universe is created. That is obvious because it's here. And it's created because of us. So that's the good news, that we're special. You know, we all want to be special. The bad news is that we're not special in a good way. We have come here because we were in the spiritual world, which is not as such created in the same way. And we got fascinated by Krishna. It says also in the purport, Prabhupada says, Krishna means all attractive. So there's definitely some fascination there. And what happened was, instead of paying our respects and serving that specialness, we thought, I wonder if I can do that. That looks fun. Let me see if I can do that. Krishna, being all merciful, he grants us that wish. because a relationship with Krishna doesn't make sense unless there is some kind of alternative. If we are forced to love Krishna with a gun to our head, it doesn't make sense. It's not actually, can't be called love, really. And if we're just robots without any sort of free will, again, where's the relationship? You generally don't have a relationship with your kitchen appliances or something. They just do what you want. I think there's this thing called Iris or something for iPhone. So you can speak to it and it does things. I think that comes close. Siri, okay. Okay, yeah. I'm not big with phones. But yeah, that comes close, but it's not really, the rasa's not really there, right? So we come here because we are not able to function properly. We are not dealing with our facility in the way that it's supposed to be dealt with. That's why we're here. So this is a place where we can't make too much trouble, because in the spiritual world everything is consciousness, so there are consequences if you don't deal properly. Here everything is not consciousness. We actually get the dull matter to play around with as a controller and to see how that works. Because my consciousness is manifested into this material body, and that's why it does things. So indirectly, now my consciousness is also pervading this book in the physical sense. I'm manipulating it around. So however much energy I want to use on trying to manipulate things, I can do that, because apparently that was something I wanted at some point. So we hear about intelligent design. That we see the universe and we think to ourselves, it makes sense that someone created this. There is this story about Thomas Edison. He's on a train and he's reading in the Bible. And this Prabhu comes up to him and he's an atheist, and he starts to kind of ridicule this Bible. What is this, And Thomas Edison is very, very very polite, very nice person, and he tries to explain to him, and it comes out that this is Thomas Edison. And suddenly, obeisances, because he's a very famous inventor and scientist. So he asked for a darshan of Thomas Edison, and he just said, yeah, sure, come to my house. So this atheist comes to his house and is let in, and Thomas Edison has this gigantic model of the universe in there. And the guy's like, wow, that's impressive. Who made that? No, nobody made it. It was here. I woke up and it was there. It's just, that doesn't make sense. You got to be kidding. It's clearly it's man-made, or someone made it. No. It's just I got up. I brushed my teeth and I looked in the mirror and I came in, and then there it is. It can't be right. Okay, so it can't be right. So if this little model can't just manifest, how do you think that the whole cosmic creation should just manifest? How can you think like that? That doesn't make any sense. So in this way, we could see that it's quite easy actually, if you're not mentally engaged in it, if you just see it, there are laws going on, so there must be a lawmaker. So this is what the creation actually is for. So it's intelligent design, yes, but it's maybe also designed for the less intelligent. That's us. Because the more intelligent, they're not here. They're in the spiritual world, and they're not suffering. They're in Vaikuntha. Yes, Taruna was explaining nicely the other day. There's Vaikuntha and then there's Kunta. So without suffering or with suffering. Suffering comes when we try to misapply our position as controller and enjoyer, because then there is all this responsibility. We're very limited, so how can I control the unlimited? So it is here to reform us. It is here to make us go back. It is like a high security prison. We will get back to that. So Krishna manifests. Let's see, are we getting everything here? Yes. We see that another thing is that we see that Bhagavatam here is we're dealing mainly with Canto 1 here and Canto 3, and then on Sunday we'll deal something with Canto 2 also. So we see here in Canto 1 that we start out actually by glorifying Bhagavatam, which is kind of funny because we're reading Bhagavatam. So how is that? So this is because of the absolute nature of Bhagavatam. Actually, Bhagavatam is not a book. Bhagavatam is kind of a mood and an activity. So it is just Krishna in literary form, just like the Maha Mantra is Krishna in sound form. This is a transcendental literature. So it is not actually about the words specifically. It's about the purpose and the meaning being conveyed. So you see later that Krishna is imparting all the Vedic knowledge to Brahmaji in 4 slokas, and we hear of the demigods having Bhagavatams with like millions of slokas. So this is just one manifestation of Bhagavatam. Just like Krishna has, millions and unlimited actually manifestations, this is one of them. And the purpose of it is to reform us so that we go back. Yes. So technically what happens is that Krishna expands as Balaram, who expands as Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is lying on the causal ocean, and he transforms the spiritual energy, which is eternal, into material energy. So the material energy is created from the spiritual energy. There is nothing separate from the spiritual energy, actually. He just kind of makes it impotent, so that it's like we're kids. So if you have a kid who keeps breaking its toys, you get him some cheap crap to play around with, so if he breaks it, it doesn't really matter. So that's what happens in this transformation, is that you take something valuable and you just take the potency out of it, and there you have some material energy, some cheap crap to play around with. So this is what happens. So he creates the total, what is called the Mahat Tattva, the total material energy, which is said to be 1/4 of the spiritual energy, significantly less. So what he does is he glances over it. Krishna doesn't work in the same way that we work, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything is him. So by his will alone, things happen. So he glances over it, which agitates it and makes it separate into what is known as Pradhan. Pradhan is now the material energy, but separated into elements, right? So now you have earth, you have water, you have fire, you have air, you have ether, you have mind, intelligence, and false ego. But it's just kind of boiled into some kind of khichdi, just like a complete soup. Nothing is really distinct in it. So then later comes the secondary creation. This is what we will be focusing on Sunday. So as Mahavishnu, he creates all the universes. It is said that they are emanating from the pores of his body. Then from Mahavishnu, he expands as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is the super soul of the universes. So he enters each universe and makes it function as the active principle. He then further expands into Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, which is what we regularly describe as the super soul. So he becomes the super soul of every living entity and every atom, so the active principles in this. So these are also known as Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Same thing. So Mahavishnu, Sankarshan, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Pradyumna, and Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, Aniruddha. So that means thinking, feeling, willing. Thinking means existence. That is Mahavishnu. Existence happens. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu enters, so there is feeling, there is some purpose. And then when he enters as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu or as Aniruddha, there is willing. There is actual activity is happening. So in this way, we have the whole existence in 3 layers, and everything is functioning by these principles. Yes, so that's that. So these are the Purusha avatars. Everything is Krishna in some sense, and we categorize it just so that we can kind of understand what is going on. So you have Purusha avatars. Purusha means controller. So these are the Purusha avatars. Then you have the Leela avatars. We know from Krishna when he's performing his Leelas. And you have the third one. This is the thing with yes, guna avatars, of course. The avatars for the three modes of material nature. But you also have some others. See, this is the thing with, I always make too many notes and then I can't figure out what's where. You have Manvantara avatars, you have Shakshavesh avatars. So these are all, yes, Yoga avatars. You have Yoga avatars, yes. They're coming every Yuga. You know, we have Kali Yuga now, we have Satya Yuga, we have Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. And for every Yuga, there is a manifestation of Krishna coming to establish religion. So in Satya Yuga, that's very easy because everybody's religious. And Treta Yuga, it gets more difficult, and then Dwapar Yuga, more difficult. It's said that the religious activities degenerate by 25% for each Yuga. So now we're on 25% and diminishing. So this time around, we need Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's very mercifully come in this Kali Yuga. He doesn't always do that, but we're very fortunate. So with added mercy, he comes. Shakshavesh avatars are empowered beings that are empowered by the potency of the Lord. So that comes in two forms. Directly empowered, which is like Brahma. Lord Brahma is empowered to perform creation of the universes. And Narada is, I think, the Shakshavesh avatar for devotion, isn't it? Yeah. And others we have that others are like the reflections of the Lord's potency, like Lord Indra. So like that. So in this way, Krishna pervades every activity in different forms. So, I'm starting to think this is a bad idea with all these notes. Thinking, whatever. Yes, so our universe is 4 billion miles across. This is a small universe. Lord Brahmaji has 4 heads here. There are universes where he has like thousands of heads, which are much, much bigger and much more things are going on. So this is the simple universe. And it is covered when Mahavishnu breathes out and this universe comes out, it gets covered by the material energy. So just like we get covered by material energy, so the universe also gets covered. So there are some layers, and each layer it's 10 times bigger than the other layer. So that means that the first layer is 40 billion miles across, or in thickness, and that's water. And then we have another layer of fire, which is 400 billion, and then air, which is 4 trillion, and then ether, which is, no, is it? Yeah, it's sky, yeah, ego. Sky, yes, ether, and then ego, and then the Mahatattva, which is like 4,000 trillion miles, which is, yeah, so the basic point is, this is a jail, this is a prison, high security. We're not getting out of here, you know. Prabhupada was explaining these scientists with their rockets, forget it, you're not getting anywhere. You know, this is for real. So the question is there another way out? And don't worry, there is. So this is called the universal egg. Yeah, so this is, all these universes are kind of floating around with all these coverings. Yes, so the way that it goes down is Mahavishnu glances. That glance is Lord Shiva. The glance is actually Lord Shiva, and the glance hitting the material energy, that is Shambhu. So that means the glance hitting the Pradhan makes it separate. So that already the Mahatattva, that is the material world, the material universe. Here, the 3 modes of material nature have entered. So above that is that's the Brahma effulgence, you know, the Brahma Jyoti, the effulgence of Krishna's qualities, but not distinct. We can't see, it's just kind of a glow. So this is what usually you hear religious people are talking about when they talk about heaven. It's always like, oh, light, go towards the light or something like that. That's the Pradhan. It's also known as the Brahmajyoti. It's also known as the abode of Lord Shiva. So Buddhists and Mayavadis, they get there because everything below the Pradhan, that's pretty much the same process as we're engaged in. Sense control, sadhana, pious activities. But they're not connected to Krishna. Krishna is what's beyond, Vaikuntha and above. So when they reach there is no more activity. This is what is the definition of the Pradhan, is there's no more activity. Everything is indistinct. So they kind of hang there, and because the soul is inherently active, it must again be active, and there is nothing above to draw you out, so they will have to re-enter into the material sphere. So then what about Brahmavadis? Because they're not actually, they're not against Krishna, they're just, or Shiva worshippers. They will reach the same abode, but they can actually make it across by mercy, because they're engaged in the right activity, but just incompletely. They are not making the full connection to Krishna, so they don't really get any further, but with the right mentality, they may actually transgress this Pradhan and actually enter into Vaikuntha. So I'm saying this to underline the fact that it's all about consciousness. It's not about a geographical place and then you go from there through a door and then there's something else. It's all about consciousness. So even though you reach the same place and you're not really making it further, then your consciousness will decide where you're going. Is there an element of surrender or is there not an element of surrender? The materialist, he tries to break through the universal egg, and that's just never going to work. Really, let's be honest, not a whole lot of stuff that materialists are doing really works out, let's look at the world today. How is it looking? It's not really going that well. So that is easy to kind of throw out. But we can call them spiritualists that are not engaged in worship, that are not engaged in a surrendering process. For them also it will not work out, because there comes a time where your logical and material mind is not sufficient anymore. So then you need something to hold on to. So this is Krishna. So if you don't have that, you will just keep the samsara, the wheel of material existence, going. You hit the absolute top, but you're just coming down again. So this is the situation. And it also says, like Bhagavatam starts out very nicely just explaining that it's all about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is nothing except the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's why this Canto 1, it explains basically this is where you are. The universe is created and you are here. Like if you're in a mall, you see there's a map of the mall. This is the mall, and then there's a red dot. You are here. So this is what the first canto actually is. You are here. There are different stories, that explain the situation in the material world. One is of Vyasadeva, who's lamenting about he's compiled the Vedic literature, but he's still not satisfied. So then Narada comes and asks him some intelligent questions, and they arrive at the conclusion that he hasn't yet completely underlined the point of the Vedas, that it's all about surrender to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's why Bhagavatam is compiled, because everything in Bhagavatam is directed at the personal surrender of Sri Krishna, because that is all there is. Everything else is just a lesser manifestation. So we're not actually disagreeing with the Mayavadis or the Brahmavadis. We're just saying this is a lesser manifestation. It's not the complete truth. And the same with all other philosophies. It's true, there is material energy, and I can manipulate it, but it won't make me happy. So it's not the complete truth. So there is only one supreme absolute truth, that is Sri Krishna. And the way we connect with him, that is the way that we get out of this suffering. And that is why the whole creation has taken place, because we need to reconnect with Krishna. So we're in the jail, but the jail cell is not actually locked. We just think it is. That's what we call illusion. So there is also, yes, we have the prayers of Queen Kunti, which are very interesting, and also therefore I guess Prabhupada made it into an entire book, is that she's explaining, she's offering prayers to Krishna that you protected us under all these circumstances. There was a poisonous cake, there was fire, there was all sorts of things, going on. And all the time Krishna was protecting them. And now she's concluding by saying, let all these things happen again, because then we will see you. We will be in contact with Krishna when we're not fine by ourselves. Our illusion is that we think that we have some kind of control. Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokula Nanda ki, Jai Shri Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Gaurnitai ki. So we think in our illusion that we're in control. I got all my notes, garland, everything is going on, I can say what I want and people will listen. But actually we're not in control, because suddenly I can't figure out what is going on, So when we are having some severe problems, really serious problems, then we start praying. There are actually technically no atheists. It's just a matter of how much trouble they have to be in before they start praying. When this is every time we hear this staunch atheist, and suddenly they're on a boat and it's capsizing and the lightnings are coming down, and suddenly it's like, God, if you are there, this is a little bit of a pickle I find myself, so because there is no other choice. Now, as you are religious, to the degree that you're a religious person, to that degree you will realize that there is no other choice at any time. That actually everything is going on by the will of the Lord, because we are not in control. So it's just about how stubborn are you. So this is a very nice prayer by Queen Kunti, and you can see that it's obvious that it is a lady giving this prayer, because generally we know from the mentalities that a lady is more interested in protection. The illusion of being in control is less. The illusion of the lady is more that I can enjoy. We have controller and enjoyer. So the masculine is the controller illusion, and the feminine is the enjoyer illusion. So that's why it makes sense that we bring out Queen Kunti when we're saying these prayers. Some other prayers are directed away from them. Usually the masculine prayers are directed way away from themselves. They're not about, they don't figure in themselves. And they glorify Krishna by bringing examples of others up. So like this, we can see that there is always layers in these scriptures, in these Puranas, layers of understanding. Yudhishthira laments because Krishna is leaving. He's, is he the Shaksha Vesh avatar of Dharma, I think? Or just the manifestation, Dharma Raj, isn't it? And so, obviously, the only true Dharma is in connection with Krishna. So obviously he laments. Then we have the passing of Bhismadev, and we see that Dharma is actually not a bad thing, because, he's lying on a bed of arrows, and it's not like they took some arrows and made a bed out of it. He got hit by so many arrows, then when he's kind of decided, okay, this is bad, he lies down, and he's actually he's not lying on the ground, he's lying on the arrows that are piercing his body. So you could imagine he's in a little bit of pain. And yet, of course, he's a great personality, so all great personalities come to see him on his deathbed, and he receives them very properly, and he's very polite, and, oh, thank you, nice you could come, and please, And then he gives his final instructions about the proper way of dealing. And after that, great personality, the sun goes to the north, auspicious time, and he chooses at that time to leave his body. So we can see how an example here of how a religious person is able to, that is what religion is the ability to transfer your attention away from yourself. So he's actually able to lie on this bed of arrows and decide, okay, now it's more, my pain is there. It's there. What can you do? But it's more important that I just give these final instructions. Now I've given them, and okay, I'm clocking out now. So this is actually the Mahabharata in the Bhagavatam. In Mahabharata, this is a huge issue. In Bhagavatam, it's less, because Bhagavatam is just all about pure devotional service, like we were saying before, where the Mahabharata is more along the lines of Dharma Shastra. It's more along the lines of what is the proper way of dealing. So here we're saying, yeah, proper way of dealing, great, that's fine, but actually it's very simple principles, so let's just focus our attention on going back to Godhead. So we can see here that the material energy, basically it's 100% downer for everybody. It's not, there's no really success stories, honestly, in this first canto, other than the thinking of Krishna. If you would mention one success story, you could say that Narada Muni kind of is one, because, his mother dies at the age of 5, and he hears from the sages, so he takes up this devotional service, and he's just wandering the universe, basically. Prabhupada calls him a spaceman. So he's wandering the earth and just appreciating Krishna's creation. So in this sense, because he's completely detached from everything, then at least it's not a failure. But we also hear that that Narada Muni is in what we call Shanta Ras. We have different rasas with Krishna. So Shanta Ras is just the rasa, the relationship of appreciation. It's not really an intimate relationship. It's devotional, but usually we don't call it devotional, because usually we would have some kind of servitorship as prominent. So usually we start to think of devotional service from the level of servitorship, above that friendship, above that parental, and then above that conjugal relationship with the Lord. But Narada Muni is a completely pure devotee, but he's in Shanta Ras because he's just detached from everything. So that's the only way, actually, that you cannot be a failure in the material world, is by being completely detached from everything. But that's not really viable for most of us. So of course we advocate attachment to Krishna. So Krishna leaves for Dwarka, and we can see how there is much attachment to Krishna when he comes to Dwarka. There is a big parade and a festival outside when he enters, and parties going on, very opulent. And then he goes and talks with his mothers, more intimate, more attachment, and then finally with the queens of Dwarka in the very private quarters, even more intimate. And as we see here, also the outside, everything is party, fun and games, and there's no control. There's no, even like the society girls I mentioned. Society girls are, what we today would call prostitutes, even though that word today has a very negative connotation, and we only use it as like very gross. Everything in this world today is gross. But here, society girls just means, girls dancing, publicly and expressing themselves. So that's going on, and that's fine. It's a part of society. It's not that it's bad. And it's very free, but it's also less intimate. And then the mothers, more intimate, but also more restricted, because these two things go together. And then finally, the queens of Dwarka, very restricted, very held back, but also very intimate. So these things go together. So this is just describing the reality of it, that the more intimate you want to be with Krishna, the more we have to restrict ourselves. We are engaged in sadhana bhakti, but it means that there are certain things that we don't do because we want to become intimate with Krishna. And this is what is there, like with certain friends, males are particularly, they're not as good at relationship as women are. This is just a fact. So you see friends playing around. They do some very daft stuff. And then they repair the friendship, and then that's kind of the rasa. So if you see an intimate relationship between a boy and a girl, you see there's still this playful aspect, but they're very attentive. They're very attentive on each other, and that means a lot of restriction on what I want to do. Should we do something? Yeah, what do you want to do? No, what do you want to do? No, what do you want to do? Yeah, no, you hang up first. No, you hang up first. No, you. I mean, it's you. And that's great, because that is where the rasa is in the restriction, because that is the surrender to each other. That is the, Sutapa was saying in his class recently, the commitment that I'm not in it for me, actually, I'm in it for you, and that's how it's supposed to work. So this whole idea that we're devotees, we can do anything, that's just ignorance of how relationship works. It's not demoniac, because it's just lack of knowledge, So this is described in this way. So then, so they come back, and Dhritarashtra, he's a materialist. He's not going to give up the kingdom, even though everything is lost. So we have to also convince him that it's also a downer for him to be in the material world. So Vidura hits him hard. This is something that usually you see the Vedic culture is very proper, very pious, very polite, but Vidura is really letting Dhritarashtra have it here. So I couldn't help myself but write down a sloka from this chapter. It's from chapter 13. Canto 1, 13, text 22. Anda puraiva vadiro, manda prakyascha sampratam, Vishirna danto mandagni, saragas kafam uttvahan. So it goes like this. You have been blind from your very birth, and recently you have become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened, and your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose, your liver is defective, and you're coughing up mucus. So this is where, this is not usually how you would address people, and he's been going for a couple of verses, actually. So, because it's over. At some point we have to realize it's over. This is material, it's temporary, it's over. Everything material breaks down. That is the nature of material energy, it breaks down. It is a reflection of the spiritual. We're spiritual, that's why we don't get it. We're spiritual, and we're in material energy, we're identifying with it, so there is this schism. It doesn't make sense that it breaks down. The spiritual energy is naturally always expanding, always growing. So that's where we want to be. But as long as we're attached to the material, we will be suffering. So we have to somehow break that illusion. Usually we have to be nice, because we get disturbed when there is loss of identity. That is disturbance. So that means we shut down. But when we get old, we just have to make that cut. We have to break it. And, whatever you got to say, you got to say. So in this way, we can see that all of these personalities, all that is working for them is Krishna. When Krishna leaves, everything breaks down. If Krishna is not with them, everything breaks down. There is only one thing that is Krishna. So the whole material creation, the whole cosmic manifestation is there because Krishna is reaching out to us on whatever level we are at. And from that level, we can start to make our way back. After Krishna has left, we see in the stories of Maharaj Parikshit, because he is the grandson of Arjuna. So when the Pandavas leave, their time is up, he takes over. But this is where we go from Dwapar Yuga to Kali Yuga. So everything starts to really get nasty here. And first he takes up the fight with Kali, but then he realizes, wait a minute, this is actually how it's supposed to be. This is just what's going to happen now. It's not actually me being a bad leader. This is just the sign of the times. So I wrote down there are some verses in chapter 14 that kind of describes what is happening here when we go and enter Kali Yuga. So This is from chapter 14, text 11 and onwards. And this is Yudhishthira Maharaj, who is lamenting because he's seeing what is happening. He's very pure, he can see what's happening, and just before he leaves, this is what's going on. The left side of my body, my thighs, my arms, eyes are all quivering again and again. I'm having heart palpitations due to fear. All this indicates undesirable happenings. Just see, O Bhima, how the she-jackal cries at the rising sun and vomits fire, and how the dog barks at me fearlessly. O Bhimasena, tiger among men, how useful animals like cows are passing me on my left side, and lower animals like asses are circumambulating me. My horses appear to weep upon seeing me. Just see, this pigeon is like a messenger of death. The shrieks of the owls and their rival crows make my heart tremble. It appears that they want to make a void of the whole universe. Just see how the smoke encircles the sky. It appears that the earth and mountains are throbbing. Just hear the cloudless thunder and see the bolts from the blue. The wind blows violently, blasting dust everywhere and creating darkness. Clouds are raining everywhere with bloody disasters. The rays of the sun are declining, and the stars appear to be fighting amongst themselves. Confused living entities appear to be ablaze and weeping. Rivers, tributaries, ponds, reservoirs, and the mind are all perturbed. Butter no longer ignites fire. What is this extraordinary time? What is going to happen? The calves do not suck the teats of the cows. Nor do the cows give milk. They are standing, crying, tears in their eyes, and the bulls take no pleasure in the pasturing grounds. The deities seem to be crying in the temple, lamenting and perspiring. They seem about to leave. All the cities, villages, towns, gardens, mines, and hermitages are now devoid of beauty and bereft of all happiness. I do not know what sort of calamities are now awaiting us. I think that all these earthly disturbances indicate some greater loss to the good fortune of the world. The world was fortunate to have been marked with the footprints of the lotus feet of the Lord. These signs indicate that this will no longer be. I think that all these earthly disturbances indicate some greater loss to the good fortune of the world. The world was fortunate to have been marked with the footprints of the lotus feet of the Lord. These signs indicate that this will no longer be. So this is Kali Yuga. We are regressing into a complete materialistic consciousness. This Kali Yuga sees the advent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right now we are in what is known as the Golden Age, so we're very fortunate that we will, at least for the duration of this lifetime, be able to relish love of God. Because that is actually all there is. There is no material world. There is material consciousness. Material consciousness means that you're seeing something as separate from the Lord. If you think there is the Lord there, and there's something here that is separate that I can enjoy, then you're in illusion. That is what the material world is. It's just an illusion. It's unreal. It's real in the sense that it exists, but it's unreal in the sense that we think it's separate from the Lord. So we have to make that connection. See, this curtain goes, and we're seeing, it's like a stage, right? And we're seeing the Lord, but we have to make the connection that this is the stage. That's reality. This is the fake reality. We're actors in a play. So we have to make that switch, that it's not us seeing the Lord, it's the Lord seeing us. We're taking part in that. And that's our experience. As long as we are not making that connection, that means suffering. So that's the way out of the prison. There is, in the second chapter, see, they're very nicely arranged, the chapters. It's not whimsical, of course, because it's the Lord. First chapter in first canto is called Questions by the Sages. It means the purport of this chapter is the proper way of actually obtaining knowledge. So this means surrender or humility. And then second chapter, Divinity and Divine Service, means telling us that only topics that are relevant to Krishna consciousness are relevant to anything. There are no relevant questions of anything else. Only in its connection to Krishna is there relevance. And then third chapter, so Krishna is the source of all incarnations. So that means Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everything else you experience is coming from him, so it's connected to him. So that is our focus. So then, oh God, these pages. I'm never doing this again. In chapter 2, text 14, it says, and I will conclude with this, therefore, with one-pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. So this is the point. So then on Sunday, we will get a little more into detail about the universal form and the material cosmic manifestation, the secondary creation, Brahmaji's creation, and how we relate to that. So are there any questions on this?